As I was thinking about getting the year off to a good start, I realized that, we normally talk about our plans for the next year, and like all of us, I'm good at New Year's resolutions, but what I've learned over time, it's actually worth nothing, because before you blink, the year is into month 3, 4, 5, and none of those first good year resolutions have been achieved, and then you actually end up feeling guilty, and then you just give up on them. But if you work with a long-term plan on your mandate and you've got your identity sorted out, it's easier not to worry about New Year's resolutions, but just to know what you've put in place is in place. And now it's a matter of building onto what is in place and see where God takes it. So as I was thinking about tonight, I said, all right, what do I talk about? So there's been so much happening, especially last year, that I'm definitely going to talk about that too. But, is a focus on 1 year enough? Because nowadays things happen so fast. And then, especially last year, the last 2 years, I've been on several groups, and the Agenda 2030 of the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, and those people kept being put into the news. So the whole thing about 2023 up to 2030 started to move into more prominence for me. And I said, all right, how do we do that? So I said, let me focus on a vision that spans over the next 7 years, which I believe will become very critical years for any person, doesn't matter where you live in the world. Now, obviously, because I live in South Africa, most of my discussion tonight will pertain to South Africa, but the elements are universal. And thanks for the people who have joined us tonight. And I see some of my friends that I've invited. Rene from Kenya has also joined tonight. So I wanted you to just have a look at what I feel on my heart. And I need to upfront put in a disclaimer, because I wear many hats, and tonight is officially a gig event. I don't want to limit it to gig. I'm also working with many community groups. So it's more a global vision, or a national vision that can become a global vision, that I felt stirred in my heart that we need to talk about. Because as we have gone into 2023, you will have experienced what I've experienced over the last few years. And if we look at current events happening, the pictures that I just put there, we see so-called people supposedly representing us, but we don't know who's behind them and making the most outrageous decisions on our behalves. Especially here in Johannesburg, we see just a proliferation of potholes, but I believe it's countrywide. We see corruption and people hiding money in furniture and stuff. Unemployment is rife. The official figure is in the area of about 30 to 40%, but we know it's probably closer to real life, to about 60%. Blackouts, I think as we speak, quite a few people who wanted to join tonight can't because of load shedding. We've seen a couple of years ago how destroyed infrastructure. We have a sense of we're being controlled, but we don't know how the manipulation works. We've seen flooding, and people blame it on so-called climate change. And right now we're in a cost spiral going upwards, where in South Africa just recently Eskom was approved another 18% increase, although they can't deliver on what their mandate is. So it's a bleak picture. And as I looked at this whole thing, I realized, you know what, I am almost getting what do you call it, saturated by all this negative news just being bombarded at us, and it's very difficult to escape it. But I don't know of anyone holding up a vision of positivity. And then the Bible verse came to me, and I will quote it a little bit later on as well, but it says, where there's no vision, people perish. And then you start becoming frantic, you become reactive, and you're out of control, but you're exactly where the people who want to manipulate the scene want you to be, because through media and populist politician declarations, they can now really upset your world, so you just want some savior to come and save you. I want to uphold a vision which we will go into tonight, and we will talk through it, but the pictures there is, how about a time somewhere in the future when it won't be naming and framing dishonest, corrupt people, but where we will have naming and faming honest government officials, where we will have available and quality water, where we will have safe neighborhoods, where we will have sustainable and affordable electricity, where we will have quality roads throughout our country, where we have functional municipalities and respect for all the people who help build the country, and we will have employment for all. So I think you will agree with me that's a novel vision, but is it realistic? And I want to spend the rest of the evening to tell you it is totally realistic, it's totally be doable, and I hope out of this vision casting, we can start stirring up in the hearts of people and communities and groups to say, you know what, let's make that our vision. Let's work towards it. So there's a saying that if you don't have a clear vision for yourself, you will have to accept the vision others have for you. Now, what is their vision for you for 2023 until 2030? Well, what their vision is, politically, the parties in power will do whatever they can to cling to power. We will see an increase of corruption, doesn't matter what are their official statements, a total disrespect for family and community values, and an intentional destruction of the economy, regardless of what they say. Economically, more potholes, expensive electricity, increased load shedding, water supply breakdowns, services breakdowns, sewerage, poor education, illiteracy. That's ahead. And if we allow other people's vision for ourselves. But it doesn't stop there. What about globally? So globally, you'll see more and more mention of CDCs, central digital currencies, where the banks want to absolutely control your total freedom. And if they don't like what you do, they can cut you off from transactions and access to services and things. So the big drive is for absolutely no individual freedom. Expect to hear more of so-called digital passports, international passports, so that they can control, have you got the vaccination? Have you got this? Have you got that? The new thing that recently started to surface is talk about 15-minute cities. Sounds very fancy to say that people should be put in living conditions where within 15 minutes you have access to any services or shop or things that you need. Beautiful, except what they don't tell you is they will force it, and there's already a town in England that has been identified to become that first prototype. And the rules will then be you are not allowed to leave the boundaries of your that town or that suburb, because they say the purpose here is to lower carbon dioxide increase in the air, and all the cars is causing that. So You must be able to drive or with a bicycle, ride a bicycle, or walk within 15 minutes. But I don't want to live in a city where I'm not allowed to leave the city. What if I want to go and visit a friend in another town? You won't be allowed to. And that's where it all goes. It's alarming, the next point, how they destroy food security. And if you go and do a Google search, how many long-standing institutions that produced food in America and elsewhere in the world has been sabotaged, burned down recently, so that the powers to be can eventually also control the food security. So there you have it, their vision for you for 2023 and beyond. And I put it in a black background because it is not an exciting picture. But what about you having a vision for you for the next 7 years, where you are sharing your own story and you are building your own story? Now, to make that happen, we will need to have a few changes. One of the changes we would need is a different kind of society structure. The current society structure says behind the scenes, things are manipulated, but in order to manipulate it, strong hierarchical structures so that there's the masses, which are the people who can't think for themselves and there's no respect for them, and then a few elite who can control it all. Whereas what's starting to surface more and more is a networked structure of like-minded, so people in a relationship with each other, like-minded community groups and functional entities working together for the common good, where nobody owns except you own your own entity, and you might have many people involved in your entity, and obviously for that there would be the normal organizational structures, but people work together in a free environment. So in terms of how do we get there, I looked at, do we have any example of this ideal being operational? And in South Africa, we have an entity called Solidarity, and I'm using them, and I've got this information from reading the blog from one of my friends, Orlando Mostert, who is going very into this alternative city structures. And if you look at Solidarity as a trade union, they were established in 2006. Their membership fee is 156 Rand per month, and you have to be a worker at some other entity. They've got about 190,000 members, and the trade union was established to protect Afrikaner workers' economic interests. But it's been a very productive year for them in 2006, because they also then established AfriForum, and I'm coming back to this a bit later, that's why I highlighted it. And they currently have about 300,000 members. The cost is 50 Rand per month. And with that platform, they fight for Afrikaner social and cultural issues. And then they've got another entity called Helpende Hand, or Helping Hand, that was established in 2008, and they raise money from donors to address poverty in the Afrikaner community and provide bursaries for students. And I think last year they had in the region of 40 million that was raised and made available. And then a big success story, Soltech, was established in 2006 as a technical campus to train people in various technical disciplines and provide theoretical training. And then, since then, they also then expanded it and built a modern campus, which they completed in 2021 for a cost of 300 million, which can then train 3,000 students in various technical disciplines. Then in 2012, they built Academia University, established to provide university courses in Afrikaans. And then also in 2018, they collaborated with Auto in General to bring out a purpose-made short-term insurance policy for their members called Verseker So, that's the Afrikaans. In English, it would translate for sure. And already in 2018 had 20,000 policyholders participating. Now, I'm not trying to say, hey, look at how good the Afrikaners are. I'm just using this as an example to say what can happen if people take hands and say, we cannot expect any help from anyone else. We have to do it ourselves. So I took the lessons out of it and I say, what can we learn and how can we make it applicable to any community elsewhere? So what is the generic template? So in looking at this example, they were like-minded people, and in their specific situation was to say, let's protect the Afrikaner culture and specifically the language and make it easy for people in the language. So they're not for a specific race group, but it's for the language. There was no geographical boundaries. It's an entity that operates throughout South Africa. They have a common language. That's the precursor. You must be able to speak Afrikaans and be comfortable with Afrikaans. And then they had a common enemy or a common cause, and that was to protect the Afrikaner in its various entities. And they collaborated on solutions. They don't always have all the answers themselves. They were willing to work with other people who had the solutions. And I said, all right, how can we make this then applicable for a community that we want to create? And just for the sake of giving it a name, I call it GIG communities. Now, GIG in our current entity stands for Generational Inheritance Groups, but you can also think of God is Good, and you can put any name there, but it's this kind of community. And I say, do we have a like-minded people, or how will we find like-minded people? And I said, what if our common bond with whoever wants to work together is just buy into the multi-generational thinking and subscribe to the shared values? And I'll talk more of that just now. Also, no geographical boundaries. Hey, we qualify because we already have national licenses in banking, financial services, fundraising, and our current membership is already spread out nationally. So yes, we tick that box. Common language. Now, I'm not thinking here of a specific language. I'm thinking here of a figure of speech. So how do we know when a person that speaks to you come out of a multi-generational thinking background? And that common language would be if you understand the journey of the 4 S's, how to move from struggle to stability, to success, to significance, and also the message of the generational house, building a house on a foundation of wisdom, walls of wealth and wellness, and a roof of worth. And who's our common enemy, or what is our common cause? Anyone who wants to eradicate corruption, anyone who wants to help to provide sustainable services in water, electricity, sewage, who wants to eradicate unemployment, who is for accountable government. And we believe the best solution there is independent candidates, who is for quality education, for personal freedom, and you can add the etc. there. And collaborate on solutions. We are already collaborating with like-minded entities like Community SA, incubation programs in GIG, alternative banking that we're developing with Vertiply, alternative investments in cattle, gold, and other, alternative financial services through GIG Wealth. And we're also working with an entity called the Voted Citizens of Johannesburg that grow and support independent candidates. So looking at this generic template, I said, we have everything to do it already. All the elements are in place. Now, just for the sake of people who are seeing this presentation for the first time, in a picture diagram on the right hand, we've got the journey from struggle to stability to success to significance, and we define struggle as a shortage of cash, where income less expenses is a minus, And if that happens ongoing, you feel hopeless. To the next stage, stability, where you have a surplus, income less expenses, now a small surplus. But if you don't change your habits, you can easily get sucked back into struggle by spending that little surplus. So we train people to work towards success, which we define as having 3 or more sustainable growing income streams, so that your hopeless turns to hope, to choices from the basis of success. Having 3 or more sustainable growing income streams, you can then finally be released in your significance. That's different for different people. And for the one person, it could be to run a soup kitchen in a squatter camp, and for another person to build more businesses to provide jobs. And the one is not better than the other. That's just how God programmed you. But we say do it from success, strength, not from struggle, because it's not sustainable from a struggle position. And the two triangles on top of one another, the family journey says, when you start off and you're in struggle, you have no time for your community or even thinking about another business. You're just trying to survive. But as you proceed on that journey, business ideas will come to you. You will have more and more time for business, which in turn will accelerate your family journey. And the day will come that you don't have to worry about money anymore. You're in your significance 24/7, and you are one of the pillars of the community and in business. To make it all happen, we also had to look at the regulatory environment, that if you are in business anywhere, sooner or later you might run into problems where you need to comply with the banking structure or the national credit regulator if you give out loans, or the right legal structures to register at Sub-C. And we can now offer to any community group out there the community banking facility, training and support. We have a national license, and we can give people incubation through our entities, Trust, Institute, CFI. Then we also, sooner or later, you might run into a problem that you want to raise donor funding. But for that, you need to be able to give donors a Section 18A certificate that they can claim it from tax. And unless you are correctly structured as a PBO and all the licenses that goes with it, very difficult. Now, we have an entity called CCC Trust, stands for Community Chamber of Commerce Trust, that roll that stone out of the way for any entity that now needs to raise funding. And then lastly, we have a relationship with the FSCA, the Old Financial Services Board, through an entity called Geek Wealth, where we have a Category 2 license, where we can do any insurance product or any kind of fund management or fund structures. And then we also developed the IP to say, how do we bring high tech with high touch? So we've developed a position like a legacy coach, which is a relationship manager to help people facilitate their wealth journey. We've developed a business coach to facilitate people on the business journey. And we've developed a wealth coach to give out financial advice and facilitate people on the wealth journey. And for the last 2 years, we've started to talk to many community groups, any legal entity or potential community bank group that wants to start this journey with their people, so that they can now tap into any of these elements that I've just mentioned there. So here's the vision 2023 to 2030. I see if a community of 300,000 members, and I've borrowed that 300,000 members because I saw what was possible by AfriForum. And we will do that by growing a gig cooperative bank and all its related institutions to become the preferred people's bank and to provide full banking services, provide business and housing loans, become an intermediary funder on behalf of private and government funding entities, and collaborate on solutions where we eventually become a cell-captive short-term insurer. We will have our own medical aid, because with that numbers you can make anything work. We have the licenses in place already. Customized funding for individuals to go off the grid on water and electricity. even develop unique energy solutions like the pebble bed mini nuclear reactor that can provide cheap, sustainable electricity to a city. And imagine if us as a community can develop one and own it ourselves. And then in time also strengthen local ward councils and independent accountable candidates. So that's the vision broadly speaking. Now, this will be challenging. And I just mentioned how will we go about doing that. And the way we will do it is highlight and identify the common pain points, which for the sake of this discussion, I put as security, water, electricity, sewage, roads, economy, and then keep on selling the future vision. And when you are in conversations with negative people, stop the conversation and see if you can't rather get them to agree with you that we can build South Africa with friendly, beautiful neighborhoods where there's active and trustworthy communication, growing the economy from supporting local businesses. And look at our niche market attractions. A good example is Clarence, the town, that through using the nature and art as their point of attraction. And I believe we can start finding the poles in each of our communities and wards and even within cities. And define like-minded. I'm defining it as non-racial, non-religious culture, but with a buy-in of a vision of let's reconstruct South Africa for the sake of our children's children, where we agree on values of stewardship. And you can't think stewardship if you want to destroy everything within a month. Think of inclusive. And yes, we will be exclusive for people who want to destroy the economy, but inclusive of anyone who thinks generationally. Think of excellence, collaboration, an abundance mindset, and generational thinking. And as we continue to establish the first gig community, we'll have to then agree on the rules of engagement. What will qualify another grouping to come on board and participate? And if you participate and we get into some entities, whether it's now sell captive insurance or whatever we do, how will we share profit and contribution back to the community? And how do we share resources and economies of scale? And then develop the community through collaboration of community-orientated businesses and services. And already we have the Gig Bank, we have Gig Wealth, we've got Project SA, Dr. Arno van Niekerk, we've got Community SA, a neutral platform, we've got Community Chamber of Commerce Trust, we've got Vertiply, alternative banking, ICCC, the National Christian Chamber of Commerce, and others. And we see local churches, locally churches, schools, NGOs, businesses, and services collaborating. And we will also through website and other communication platforms work with our collaboration partners and what they're doing. So, how do we grow the gig community? The actions already in place is we've got free membership coupled with other classes of membership, and one of the memberships that we will bring in soon would be a business membership. It will be a resource center for members, events and webinars for members, and we will focus on celebrating good news and more active legacy business wealth coach engagements. And then I want to share with you a social formula that's in my book, but we will start to utilize the social formula that says if we work with like-minded people who get together and share their thinking and resources, we can unlock economic power in a community in the following way. So the formula says P squared minus P divided by 2 equals S, where P are like-minded people and S are synergistic relationships, or in this case, that can become bankable businesses that can employ people and eradicate unemployment. So if you have 10 people and you apply that formula, 10 squared, so 10 times 10 is 100, minus 10 is 90, divide by 2 is 45. So if 10 people regularly meet and are of like mind and they share ideas, within a very short period of time, they could technically come up with 45 different business ideas, all bankable, that can provide sustainable jobs for people. If you now put 20 in that formula, 20 times 20 is 400, minus 20 is 380, divided by 2 is 190. And then so forth. As more and more people get added into that formula, by the time that you get to 10,000, you really eradicate unemployment, where you have more than 50 million potential business ideas that can sustain people. So that's what I'm saying. But we need to then scrap draconian laws, stop over-regulation, and as a community provide a nurturing social environment through example gig clubs, community chamber of commerce, and so forth. So what will be required to grow such a national gig community of 300,000 members? We will be looking for 300,000 people being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and ready to become the founding parents of their founding members of their generational dynasty, and committed to start developing their story. And in turn, they'll be serviced by 30,000 plus businesses serving the needs of this community and participating in the alternative banking structures, and further supported by more than 3,000 legacy business wealth coaches trained in the gig message, spread over 300 or more community groups, churches, stokvels, employers, sharing the vision and collaborating to adopt the gig message and develop membership programs for their communities. We can do this together. And then with God's help, I said, what if things work out and we get favor from God? Instead of one community, what about a community in every province? And South Africa got 9 provinces. So I know it will take an immense amount of work and time and focus. But what about this as a vision instead of the negative that we see around us every day? And what is my word basis for this vision? Well, Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, no redemptive revelation of God, the people perish. And I think right now you can see around us, people are perishing. Most people have gone into 2023 very nervous, very anxious, and still buying the newspaper in the hope that there will be some positive news, but there's none. But what if we can change the vision? And there's a verse that says, where 2 or 3 agree on earth regarding anything, so it will be for them. Let's become that 2 or 3. And then the powerful verse that made me do what I'm doing tonight in Habakkuk 2, verse 2 to 3 says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and engrave it so plainly upon tablets that everyone who passes by may be able to read it easily and quickly as he hastens by. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, and it hastens to the end or its fulfillment, but it will not deceive or disappoint. Though it tarry, wait earnestly for it, because it will surely come. It will not be behind on its appointed day. And then ultimately, in Deuteronomy, it says, but the land which you enter to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water of the rains of the heaven, and God's eyes are permanently on the land to feed it and look after it. So this is the vision that I want to put out there, and I'm inviting people to say, if this speaks to you, you're already part of this vision some way or another, and you're not yet collaborating, please talk to me or us at GIG. There's the contact detail. There's my personal contact detail. Or if you want to start an initiative for your community, talk to us. Because if not you, who? And if not now, when? And my favorite one then, is it the end or is it the beginning? Any comment?
Hello, everyone. I think this is a very robust agenda. And we have to position ourselves to do something. We cannot be just listening to what is happening the world over without really positioning ourselves and aligning ourselves with what we'd like to see. I think what you have presented is doable. There is enough structure in it to support the initiatives that have been outlined. And I really believe we have enough people who want to see change at the moment. So really there is enough people who are ready to get stuck in, who are ready to move with the positive vision, who are tired of just complaints and negative statements. So this is a very doable plan. And with proper communication, proper outlining it out there to the different communities, we can be able to achieve it. I'm quite positive for 2023. There's been a lot of momentum that has gathered since last year. And there's been a lot of organizations that are rising up and taking their place in the different functions and the different roles that they have been called into. So this is quite positive. We can do it if we are united and we understand that we have to bring change and we have to start building our country.
Let me just really begin by commenting you and thanking you for the vision that you have shared, but also the potential that your vision seeks to activate and unlock. You're so right in your global dipstick kind of assessment of what is coming down the pike, of what is being planned for the world and for us. The sad news that you barely scratched the surface with your sharing. Things are perhaps many times worse than you are able to share within the limited time. And unless the world wakes up to what the globalists are prepared, working with a lot of the political leadership, big business, big pharma, big banks, big industrial operation, the world is really in for a shock. And the agenda to bring control, to bring an electronic prison across the globe must become the fuel to motivate and to add urgency to what you are proposing. Communities that begin to work together, begin to collaborate together, begin to create mutual safety nets, not just for this generation, but also for the next generation, are going to be absolutely critical for the season that we're going into. And it's going to become increasingly difficult, not only to resist, but to find avenues of escape as individuals, because the thinking behind the globalists, the World Economic Forum, it is absolutely inspired by satanic wisdom. It is very clever. It sounds very good, but it is absolutely evil and wicked. And they are committed to now springing this upon the earth because a lot of them were really forced into the open by COVID. And although COVID has been disappointing from their view, it has prepared the world's population to begin to anticipate these lockdowns, the 15-minute cities, and everything that is being coached in very sweet words. At the end of it, it's global slavery, it's absolute control, total loss of freedom, total control of what you buy, what you can do, where you can go. So what you're proposing is in my view, is a practical antidote to help people buffer their positions before the prison doors begin to lock down and to come down. I'm based in Kenya, and as you know, Jasper, I've spoken about what you're doing in South Africa, and we have, I know we had said, let's go through the holidays and talk soon. You can't believe it's already mid-month and we have not spoken. We need to do so because I do have people around me that are absolutely tired of just being tired and complaining about the things that are going on. There's need for hope, there's need for solutions. What is proposing is practical, it's doable. You've been able to operate it within the regulatory framework. So there's a lot that can already be learned from your operations. Let me just encourage you and tell you that even as I listen to you this evening, I feel much more motivated to connect with you offline and drive this conversation to the next level. So thanks. And again, really congratulations and thank you for your heart for the community. This being my final point really underscores the spirit that is driving you and causes it to stand in opposition with the spirit that is driving the world. The spirit right now on the world is me, myself, and I. I want to build this for myself so that I can prosper. And who cares about the community around me? I think the consideration and the way that you've structured your vision around the community empowerment, mutual supports to one another, it is the way to go because it is what is contrary to the spirit of Babylon that is seeking to bring the world into its control. So God is in on this because this is God's pattern. God wants a community, a kingdom community that bears each other's burdens, that cares for the weak, the widows, that carries those that are not able to walk on their own. This is God's intent. And I just bless God for what you're doing and really looking forward to hearing more and getting into practical. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need to get this done. Thank you.